Hi and welcome to the fourth podcast for KV421. Just to remind you that our next session is on Saturday the 7th of February and I'll be posting some material on Student Central that relates to this podcast and to support the next stage of this module generally. I'll also be putting a note up about where we are room-wise, but as is the pattern now on Saturdays, the first hour and a half or so will be with your year tutor, and then there'll be a short break, and then you'll have an hour with your reflective practice tutor. So again, just to remind you to send through to your reflective practice tutor and to other people in your reflective practice group an example of a recording that you would like to talk about in your groups ahead of time, and also to look at the postings that others in your group send round to you and the rest of your group, so that you come along to that session well prepared. In terms of the module generally, so we're about halfway through now. This is will be the fourth of 6 sessions coming up this Saturday, and so and you've now completed the first 2 core modules, KV400 and KV420, and you'll be into the first of the route specific modules, and then there'll be a second route specific module, and then this module to finish that first year. So 5 modules in total over the first year, and you're halfway through this module. And that halfway stage means also that you should have in your diary, or some of you may already have had it by now, your second 3-way meeting to agree your second learning contract. And just to remind you that learning contract again sets the framework for your reflective practice over the coming half of the year. And today, in general terms, we're going to be looking at, so what does it mean in terms of professional development, professional learning, which is the focus of this module, a kind of a bit of an idea about what we mean by integrated practice as well, and some food for thought in terms of starting to think about what the final assessment task of this module might look like. So the notion about professional learning, what do we mean by professional learning? When we're thinking about ourselves in our roles in working with children and young people, we might think about the learning that we kind of undertake happening on several different levels. So first of all, maybe the things that we learn about children and young people and the way they learn and develop. And in a way, broadly speaking, that's the focus of KV420. So the notion of how do children and young people learn, how do they develop, and therefore, on that basis, how we as different professionals work with them. So the second area of learning is our engagement with those children and young people that we work with. The third area, the third sort of focus, if you like, in terms of professional learning, might relate to our organisation. How does our role support the service that our organisation provides? That might be the school or the nursery or the youth provision or the college or whatever it might be. So how does our role relate to and fit in with the broader service provision of the organisation we work with? And of course, beyond that, our learning, it relates to how do we see the services, the wider services for children and young people, and how do we see children and young people in the society that we're growing up, that we're working in. And I think that's particularly relevant as we sort of head towards the next election. How are children and young people seen within society? How do political parties regard the nature of professional work with children and young people? So in a sense, there's almost like a Russian doll model. Oh, here's the cat. It's a Russian doll model, which is that we think about the children and young people we work with, we think about our role in relation to them, we think about the services we work with, and we think about the broader society. And I want to kind of give you a sort of suggested idea, if you like, that part of our learning process is to understand and become more comfortable with this notion about integrated working. Now, integrated working usually refers to the way that different professional groups work together and the way that services interrelate with each other. But in this context, in the context of this module at this stage, I want to suggest that integrated working we might see as being to do with how we are integrated as professionals ourselves. So let me explain what I mean by that. And I want you to think about the way that we work in having kind of three broad areas of focus in terms of ourselves. So we might think about what we know, in the sense of what's in our head. What do we know about children, young people? What's our knowledge? What theoretical models do we use? What's our understanding of the way they develop? And how do we see children and young people as learners, as developing people? So in a sense, a knowledge base. So what do we know about children and young people? The second dimension relates to what we do. And I'm using our hands, if you like, as a metaphor here. How do we work? What is it, the way, in terms of the way we engage with children and young people, the focus of our practice, on an everyday sense, what do we do? So hopefully what do we do is informed by what we know, and what we know is informed by what we do. So in a sense we start to see the two of those elements working in tandem, our knowledge base and our skills. And then the third dimension I'd like you to think about then is in terms of our value base, our heart, what we believe in, what we value, what we feel to be right, and our own emotional responses to the work. So at times we might find ourselves, in a sense, having a very strong value base or very strong belief about the nature of our work, but our practice somehow not being aligned with that. In other words, we might feel that we perhaps should be doing something, but the circumstances prevent us from doing what we think or what we believe is the right thing. So at times we find ourselves out of an alignment. In other words, our head, our hands and our heart don't quite match up. And part of being professional is juggling that. And at times, if we're lucky, we feel that we're really in our element. We are working in tune with our knowledge, our skills, we feel confident about, and the feelings and the belief and the values we have about our work are all in alignment. And at those moments, we generally we feel really good about our work. We have a sense of passion and belief and commitment, and we feel good about ourselves and the impact that we're having on children and young people. At other times, we might feel that our head and our hands and our heart aren't quite in alignment, that we feel frustrated because we can't quite work in the way we should be working, or we don't understand quite why things are the way they are, or we notice that our skill base, our practice, perhaps isn't as well developed in order to meet the children and young people's needs we're working with. And that's when the challenge is for us, when we feel that perhaps that the head, hands and heart aren't integrated. So part of my suggested focus at this stage of the course is to think about how our professional learning is developed in relation to what we know, our head, what we do, our practice with our hands, and our values, our commitment, our belief, our feelings about our work, which we kind of might represent by our heart. So, in terms of the practice recordings, I'd ask you to think about where we feel we've got examples where those elements of our everydayness are in alignment, that we've maybe a piece of work where it's felt that it's really gone well, that we've really practiced and worked in a way which everything's felt good, and we come away thinking, yes, what a fantastic piece of work I was involved with, and how positive we might feel about making a difference. And at other times, thinking about as a contrast to that, the way that sometimes we feel like we feel like a fish out of water, or we feel like whatever we were doing just wasn't me, and somehow there's a jarring between what we think we should be doing and what we find ourselves doing. So notice that head, hands and heart as an idea. There's a sheet that I put on Student Central that asks you to reflect on the way that your knowledge and your skills and your beliefs and values have developed over the course of the year so far. And just as a gentle prompt, that's what we're going to be asking you to review right at the end of the module: how you feel your professional development has gone over the course of the year. So maybe this is the halfway stage. Maybe it's a good time to pause and think about that. There was one final thing I was going to mention, and I can't think what it is. Oh, I know. Yes, I do remember. And watch out for the taken for grantedness. Watch out, if you can, where you feel that you had a certain level of I know what I'm doing, and then something has kind of slightly knocked you off your stable position by challenging what you usually do, or challenging what you know, or challenging what you believe in. And partly because those moments where we feel most challenged by our beliefs, our values, our knowledge, our practice, often the times of the kind of the key learning points. So if you can, be open to be challenged, be open to be questioned, and notice when though your head and your hand and your heart isn't in alignment, because those are often the key learning points. Okay, I think that's enough from me. I hope that was thoughtful, provoking, and I'll be around next Saturday, so look forward to seeing you then, and have a good week.